Hello and welcome to Flipping the Music Classroom with Nathan Walby. In today's objectives, we're going to be talking about the flipped classroom and what that basic concept is. We're going to talk about universal design and multimodal learning and how these two concepts work together to help you create a stronger flipped classroom. We're going to look at some of my own examples of the lessons I've created in a music flipped classroom, and then we're going to talk about tips and tools for flipping your own classroom. So what is a flipped classroom? Well, there's the traditional interpretation where students watch an instructional video at home. They then go to class the next day where they do a hands-on activity, and then they return home where they can reflect on this activity in the videos that they've watched. This is a great model if you're a high school student or maybe a university student, maybe even for middle schoolers. But for my elementary students, it's sort of unrealistic. Instead, I like to think of a flipped classroom as more of an activity-centered interpretation. See, traditionally, the teacher is in the center of the classroom. The teacher leads the instruction. The teacher then leads any sort of activity that the class is doing. Instead, in the flipped model, there would be some sort of video, probably created by the teacher, that the students watch, and that video gives them all the information they need to know and leads them into the activity. The teacher then functions more as a facilitator, helping students complete that activity. Now the video, it can be something the students have watched at home, maybe it's something that the whole class has watched together, maybe it's something they've even watched on their own personal devices such as Chromebooks or iPads. But whatever the case, it all leads to that activity instead of just a lot of instructional time by the teacher. So what are the benefits and costs to a flipped classroom? Well, first, there's student control. The student's able to control the video, the student's able to learn in their own way. Even the activities give the student a greater sense of control in their learning process. This is also an activity-based way of learning, which is nice for students. It's hands-on, and it allows students to really practice the concepts that they're studying. This is ubiquitous learning, and by ubiquitous I mean that it's accessible anywhere, anytime. This is a powerful tool for students to be able to access your material, whether they're in their car, at home, anywhere that they have Wi-Fi. But not only for students, this also allows parents to access your material anywhere. Parents can then just follow your lessons, watching the videos, understanding what you're teaching, and then they can engage with their students on a whole new level. Now there are a lot of costs. There's classroom resources. You need to have a projector. You need to have a computer. You need Wi-Fi. It's preferable that even your students have Chromebooks or they have iPads or some sort of personal device that they use. If students don't have access to these materials at home, then you have the problem that they may not be able to watch your videos. Or even if they can watch your videos at home, many of your students simply may not. There's also a lot of front-end work involved. Teachers have to create videos, and these videos aren't created easily. It does become easier the more you create, but especially in the beginning, you're going to spend a lot of time working with a computer. And finally, this isn't always the best strategy. And as you flip your classroom more often, as you create more lessons, you're going to realize some lessons work incredible with the flipped model. Other lessons could have easily achieved the same objectives just through traditional approaches. Now, before we get into this any further, let me talk about myself for a second. My name's Nathan Walby. I've taught over 10 years teaching music. I've taught from pre-K students all the way through the 12th grade. I started out working with high school students. I spent about 5 years working with middle school students. And for the last 4 years, I've been working with elementary. Now, I have a master's degree in music education. This is how I started teaching. And then about 3 years ago, I decided to change my interest around, and I went back to get a master's degree in instructional design and technology. This is a degree that really helps you learn how to be able to create learning material in a digital content or digital context. So what I'm talking about today really uses both of these bodies of knowledge, this understanding of how to teach music as a music teacher, and also a lot of theory that I've gained along the way in learning about instructional design and technology. The problems that I face as a teacher are probably very similar to the problems that you face. There's the language barrier. For many of my students, English is their second language, and they're just now beginning to learn that language. Then there are cultural barriers. The songs and games that I grew up learning are just very different than the songs and games my students play, even different than the things that their parents learned. And then there are disabilities and limitations. I know some of the disabilities in my classroom, but I certainly don't know them all. Now, on top of all of this, I want to be able to teach my students how to read music, how to be able to perform music, and how to grow musically. But when I approach music in a traditional way, what I end up getting is very low engagement and low retention. This is what led me to wanting to flip my classroom in the first place. And when I started to think about how I could flip the classroom, I began to look into two theories, the theory of universal design and the theory of multimodal learning. But rather than me try to explain to you how these theories work, let me show you a video. Universal design principles are essentially a set of guidelines that help developers create accessibility features in the design of their products. Examples of this can be as simple as the inclusion of closed captions on videos, or as complex as the recent changes in HTML5 that are designed around allowing websites to be navigated in multiple ways using assistive technology. One aspect of the second principle of universal design is that information be presented in multiple and often simultaneous ways. This is referred to as multimodal learning. In a nutshell, multimodal learning is the belief that when multiple learning modes are effectively used together, the learner will gain a better understanding of the concept. So, what is a mode? Anything that communicates meaning. Take the word stop, for example. The word itself represents a concept, but not really the context. Add color, and the meaning suddenly becomes deeper, but add shape, and now we have a stop sign. But what if you're colorblind? What if you don't know the language or the visibility is low? Even when one of these modes are missing or inaccessible, the meaning of the stop sign can still be communicated. This is the nature of multimodal learning. Different modes work together to create meaning, with each mode contributing to that meaning in a unique way. But is this an effective way to communicate? Probably not. Effective multimodal communication works best when words and pictures are presented simultaneously and in close proximity, but also when extraneous words and images are removed. Animation and narration work better than animation and text, and well-designed layouts are shown extra effective when working with learners with low knowledge or with high spatial learning abilities. Research shows that multimodal videos are effective at improving student performance for both basic and advanced skills, as well as in interactive and non-interactive environments, but they are most effective when used to present complex material in an interactive environment. So, how does multimodal learning work with the principles of universal design? Let's say you have a concept you'd like to teach. You know the disabilities of some of your learners, but it's a pretty safe assumption that you don't know all of their disabilities. So you start by explaining the concept in multiple ways. You use text and images together. This can really help students who may not be able to hear you or understand what you're saying to still make sense of the meaning. You add audio for those who learn best through listening or may not be able to see well. You add animation to that audio to focus attention. And by animation, I mean anything that moves on screen. And you add closed captions to all the audio. YouTube offers an easy way to do this. Once you are finished, test your video. Turn off the sound and see if it makes sense. Listen to the audio without any images. Does it still make sense? Show it to someone unfamiliar with the concepts. Does it make sense to them? Remember, the core of multimodal learning is communicating your concept in the most effective way possible. And the core of universal design is that everyone, regardless of limitation, will be able to access that communication. Learning to communicate in this way will require practice, and it will involve a lot of trial and error. But the better you get at it, the easier it will become. And once you start to see the benefits of these strategies, it will all become worth it. My big takeaways from this were to be able to create something that's visual, that I can explain meaning simply through visuals, to be able to explain things orally so my students will be able to hear what I'm saying or hear what I'm playing, and finally to represent what I'm talking about symbolically. Now this could be something like musical notation, it could be something like text, it could be anything that's a symbol that represents concepts. Then I would put everything together as an instructional video, and that instructional video would guide my instructional activity that I was preparing my students to do. For my initial experiment, I decided to create something more like a music video that would be able to help my students understand the music that I wanted them to perform simply by watching me do it. So let me show you one of these videos.
What a goodly thing if the children of the world could dwell together in peace. What a goodly thing if the children of the world could dwell together in peace. What a goodly thing if the children of the world could dwell together in peace.
In this time, why don't I take a half note and put it right here? Now I have something that sounds like this. T, 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 toe-wee. And notice how that E covers up my last note. So if I wanted to add another quarter note, you notice I actually don't have room for that other quarter note because it would be on top of my toe-wee. So I'm going to have to put that back. Hey kids, let's create a rhythm together today. Let's start out with 2 eighth notes, followed by another set of 2 eighth notes, then a third set of 2 eighth notes way over here, and then finally a quarter note way over here. This pattern sounds like this. T, 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 ta.
Walk to school together. Walk, walk, walk to school. Sara watashi, Sara watashi. Shizuka ni watashite kowareru you ni. Oni no
If the children of the world could together. Asumbu kawaya kadu karim. Asumbu kawaya kadu karim. In winter, I get up at night. In dress by the yellow candlelight. In summer, quite the other way. I have to go to bed by day. Say what?
Since implementing a flipped classroom model in my music classroom, the results have been very positive. Probably the thing that I like the best is the improved student participation. I used to teach where I would have 50, 60, 70% of my students participate, and there would always be students that just didn't really do anything. Now I have very, very few students that do that. Since I have so many tasks, especially when you're performing a piece with 4 or 5 different parts, everybody has a job, and everybody has to complete that job for the group to be successful. And sure enough, now I have everybody participating. This has also improved attitudes. Students really like music, they feel like they're learning something in music, and they don't really get bored very much. And as a result, it's also decreased the behavior problems. I've given students instruments probably almost every single day of class, and I've only had one incident where a stick has been broken because a boy was hitting it on the floor. But everything else, students have been very respectful with their instruments, and they feel like they're invested in the process. This has also created a much more relaxed atmosphere. We know what we're doing in class, we know what the goals are. If we get confused, we can always go back and we can watch the video and we can refresh ourselves on what the objectives are. This has also allowed us to just have more complex tasks. I could never teach the songs that I teach now with classes in a traditional classroom. They would simply forget their melodies once I teach it to them. But now they seem to be able to hold on to that knowledge much more. And this has led us to having deeper discussions. We can really talk about what it is to be a musician. We can talk about music theory in a way where we reflect on what we know as musicians and putting that music theory into context. Alright, so now let's talk about some tips and tools for flipping your own. The first tip is to start small and to think big. Now, when you first try to flip your classroom, it's important just to see if you can take a project through completion. It can be as small as you want it to be. In fact, you should make it small because it may fail along the way. So start with something small, just get it across that finish line and figure out how to do that. And then you can go back and build more improved projects, bigger projects, and improve yourself as a digital video creator. The next thing is to embrace problems. I think that learning music is very much like learning technology. The way that we learn music is that we start to perform music and we discover those problems inherent in the piece that we're performing. The more problems we solve, the better we get at performing music. In technology, it's just the same. Every technological project has a lot of problems, and the better you are at solving those problems, the easier all of it becomes. Finally, improve your digital literacy. There's always new things to learn, and when you learn those things, connect those to the things you already know, and just grow constantly as a digital person, and that will really help your life, especially in the long term. Now, let's talk about tools. I have 4 basic categories across the top: basic, web-based, tablets, and advanced tools. And I also have 2 categories on the side: video and graphics tools. You're going to at least want to know a good video tool and a good graphics tool in order to make the sort of videos that we need to make. But how you make it can go in any number of directions. You'll notice that you can do quite a lot just using PowerPoint. It's a very powerful graphics tool. You can create graphics on PowerPoint. You can take images and cut out the backgrounds to them. You can do quite a lot of things just using PowerPoints. You can also create videos, such as the video you're watching right now. But on top of this, you can also use programs like iMovie or other simple video editing programs. These programs can be very easy to quickly put a video together. Even today, I still use iMovie quite a lot for the things I do. Now, in the second category, web-based tools. These are tools that you can download from the Chrome store. You can have them run straight out of your web browser. They're very convenient, but I also find that they're very limited. One of the problems with these tools is that they're always trying to monetize their tool. They give it to you for free, but they need some way to generate money, and that usually equals into some sort of limitation, and it makes them not a real viable choice, at least currently. But what I really like are tablet tools like iPad apps. And so what I use, and what I use most often, is a program called Explain Everything. Many of the videos you've already seen are videos that I've created using Explain Everything, and along with that I use a graphics tool called Assembly. And Assembly takes a lot of different clip arts and allows you to change their picture, their size. You can stack them on top of each other, and you can create complex graphics out of it, such as, for example, there was a video I showed you of children passing a plate around to go along with this Japanese plate passing song. All of those graphics were just created in assembly, and it took just a few minutes to create, and then I was able to drop it all in to explain everything, and I had a video. Now the last category are the advanced tools, and I really love the advanced tools too. You'll notice that all the tools I listed are Adobe tools, and they're all part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. And I listed them because I'm a member of the Adobe Creative Cloud. For teachers, it costs about $20 a month, maybe around $20 or $30 a month, to subscribe to Adobe's Creative Cloud. And in return, you get about 20 to 30 different programs, and they're all very high-powered programs. And so not only do you get Premiere Pro and Illustrator and Photoshop, you also get programs like InDesign and Dreamweaver and Flash, and just a lot of really great things to be able to create digital content with. And so if you're really serious about digital content, I strongly recommend just subscribing to Adobe Creative Cloud if you can, because it's quite a lot of fun, and the more you learn, the more you can make these programs work together and just do amazing things. Along with the creative tools, you're also going to need to learn some utilities to really be able to flip your classroom effectively too. The first thing you want to think about is cloud storage. Cloud storage is really useful. In fact, I would think that it's essential now, so that you're able to share your files from computer to tablet to from home in office. Wherever you go, you want your resources right there. For example, oftentimes I will save images on my computer, and I'll be able to open up those images on my iPad. I'll be able to take my video on the iPad, put it right there in the cloud, and then I have it on the computer. And so you have a couple options on how you do this. For me personally, I really love using Google Drive. It's connected to everything that I use, and so it works well for me. But there's also Dropbox that you may really love. A lot of people use that. Or there's also programs that are part of the systems, like I think Windows has their version of cloud storage, Apple has their version. So whatever works for you is a good idea. Next, you want to think about web access. There's YouTube, of course, and YouTube is by far the most popular. It's very accessible because students, if they have a smartphone at home, chances are they're able to watch YouTube videos on that. There's also Google Drive, though. If you don't want your videos to be so public, you can actually put them on Google Drive and play it straight off of there. Or you can put your videos on Google Classroom and just show them privately within your class. Now, the next thing you want to think about is training resources. For me, I didn't learn all of these programs naturally, and I didn't learn them just through trial and error. I invested money in teaching myself how to do this, and I used lynda.com. Lynda.com is a tutorial service. It's a subscription-based service where you pay about $20 to $30 a month, and then you have access to thousands of courses, and each course is typically about 10 to 12 hours long. So if you're really serious about learning a lot of programs that you just don't know right now, you may want to look into lynda.com, because they can quickly and effectively teach you the tools you need to know, and then from there you can just quickly go out starting to use those tools and to build the things that you want to build. To learn more, you can contact me at the email address listed here, or you can also go to this website, thechildmusician.com. This is the website I use for my classes. I post all of my music videos up here, so if you're interested in watching some of these videos in their unedited version, you can go to this website. Or if you're curious just to see how my project grows over the year, this website is going to be growing throughout this year, and you can join in on the fun. And of course, here is our evaluation that you can fill out. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.